capital markets maven of money who is able to make you realize your financial goals. With nearly 2 decades of experience in the wealth building and investment management industry, she has the expertise you need to emerge. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonder of wealth, introducing Najah Peterkin.
Welcome. Have a seat.
Okay.
So, thank you so very much for agreeing, for being our presenter. We've heard people speak about their goals, their objectives, and a lot of the time, we can't seem to get much further if we don't have the money. We have these goals, we have these objectives. Some of us have family, some of us don't. But it's how do we do all of this? How do we amass? How do we accrue wealth? How do we save? But how do we invest and still pay all the bills? Does that sound like pretty much the question everyone kind of sort of has? So we've been hearing financial freedom. It's something that everyone speaks about.
Yes.
But what is it, and is it really practical? Can it be done?
Of course. So, hi everybody. So financial freedom is important, but it means different things to different people. What I may consider financial freedom may be different from you. I may want to just simply be okay and I'm fine and I want to travel a little bit, not too much. But somebody else may have all these wonderful dreams and goals, and it takes a lot more for you, if that's what you want, than for me. But financial freedom ultimately comes down to it's a personal thing. It really does depend on the person. You mentioned a lot of things just now, and people think then that it's hard and finance is difficult. But I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. But you do need a partner. Okay. You need somebody who does understand it, who can sit down with you, talk you through where you are at and what your goals are. What does your future look like? Some people can do it on their own, but not many people. You do need the help. Let's say if it's help, but it's really just conversation. And I want to say that it starts by truly looking at where you are right now. So a couple of us, some people may be 25, some people may be 40. My mother, she's 60, but each of us where we are right now will matter. What do your debts look like? That's a tough question that some of us don't like to talk about.
Why didn't you look out to the audience when you asked that question?
I looked right there. And of course, guys, the debts they come in many different forms. There's the credit card debt. What's the interest rate on that credit card? You should be able to tell me that when I ask you. It's a question that I asked our very dear Naomi, and she had to go do her homework and come back. Tell me, what's the mortgage rate?
Hold on, can you stick up in? How many of us know the interest rate on our credit cards?
Good, that's good, but it's still not enough, people.
Not enough.
Well, most of you know that it's high, right? And that's probably enough. That's probably already enough. And so, don't get me wrong though, guys. Debt is not always a bad thing. Yeah, we do need a mortgage because if you're in Jamaica nowadays, a one-bedroom apartment is running you 15 to 20 million or more, sometimes 30, depending on the location. So who has that sitting down to buy a one-bedroom? Not many people. So you are going to have to use debt in responsible ways.
And managing it.
And managing it. But as we were saying regarding the credit card, I find that one resonates a lot with people because it's easy cash, right? It's sitting in the wallet. And you get the miles. So, it's a good thing. Of course, it's a good thing if you can actually pay that off within the same month. If in your expenses and revenues you have an allotment for credit cards and you can pay that, then it's perfectly fine.
So what's the tip though? Because, and I think it resonates with a lot of us because we are credit card holders. And I do understand that there are emergencies. Sometimes you don't expect to spend a particular amount of money, but it's an emergency. But what would you consider to be the do's and don'ts when it comes to really managing the expenditure of on your credit card?
Sure, and I want to lead you guys into the notebook a little bit because it does have some really, really good information as
Page
it relates
13.
to that. But let's talk about, you're saying the tips now in terms of the do's and don'ts. Well, before we get to the do's and don'ts, a tip I want to give is the 50-20-30 rule because it has a lot to do with simply just budgeting. So pretty much, let's say you're earning about 100,000. That's an easy number to use. We're not to be spending more than about 50% of that on necessities. And necessities includes the loan, the mortgages, and so on, because it is a necessity to, well, for most of us to own a home. Controversial topic, but we won't get into that today. There's the other 20%, guys, that must be saved / invested. Must. And that includes your pension plans and retirement plans. And then the 30% no, we're going to use for dining, entertainment, you know. And this is just a general guide. Truth is, I'm a little bit stricter with myself, and so I kind of flip that 20-30. I do 30 for savings and investments, and then the 20 on myself at this time. Maybe a little later, I can flip it back. So
I'm like, wow, 50% is, yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, the most important part, though, guys, is to just get started. Look at your income, look at your expenses. You might be surprised at how much you're spending on the coffee, how much you're spending on the party clothes, how much, well, not party clothes so much anymore, but just clothes. You know, I tend to overspend a little bit, for example, on my gym clothes. It does add up, and it's expensive, and maybe I just need to keep wearing the same gym clothes that I have for a little longer. But not till I see it in black and white do I realize how much I really spent on the gym clothes. So just try that as the very, very first step to see where you are. And then I would go into the goals. And these goals don't have to be just boring, guys. Let's have a little bit of fun goals, too. We all want to go to Milan, or we all want to go to, let's just even say to the Barbados, to some beach time. But put it as a goal. And when you hit that goal, it will feel so good to actually go take that trip. You saved for it, you earned it, you deserve it. Do it.
Okay. And so you're saying that the 50-30-20 rule by right is something that we should always kind of...
It's a good guide.
It's a good guide.
It's a really good guideline.
And so in terms of the do's and the don'ts with the credit card, like off the top of your head, what would you say those are?
I actually use my credit card to pay all my bills. Points. The points are real. Because I know I can pay my bills every month because I have my budget, right? I mean, truthfully, the light bill, the water bill, the flow bill, you generally know them. They're mainly the same every month. It's those unexpected things that I may use the card to pay for that I need to make sure I can cover. Do not let the month pass and you don't clear the credit card. Do not spend on the credit card something that you know you can't cover at least within 2 months. I give myself a break for 1 month, but by the next month, I must clear that card. Guys, the charges are too high. The late fees are high, the rate is high, and it's just not prudent. You're doing yourself an injustice because you could get a cheaper loan. You don't need to use the credit card for that loan. You could actually go to the bank, talk to the investment advisor, and get a loan that's half that amount. So it doesn't work out if you're going to be using it, I would say, for longer than 2 months.
And I'm sure something that you'd probably say is, as she rightfully said, everyone's journey is different. So something might be working for someone else might have a different financial advisor for a different goal. Don't use the same template that someone is using for your own financial goal.
Correct.
So your section is, wow. So your section is how to create wealth by paying yourself first. What is that? What does that mean? So
people don't wake up and get rich. You really, well, unless mommy or daddy is already rich, and then you're really born rich. Or you win the lotto, and that could be short-lived if you still don't plan for the wealth that you've come into. So let's talk a little bit about building that wealth. So we spoke about the 50-30-20. So that 20%, you have to absolutely maximize it. You can't just leave it in the bank. And yes, I work at a bank, and there's a place for money in the bank, but that's mainly for your emergency fund, yes? 3 to 6 months, we have a couple rules, and they're not really rules, they're just guidelines, as I mentioned before. But having about 3 to 6 months of your salary in a bank account is a good idea, guys. Things can happen. You can possibly lose that job for whatever reason, or just health. Things come up and you need to dip into some money. PJ said it, you have to have a little money put aside.
Is this your entire salary or your expenses? So for example, Do I try to save 3 months of what my salary is, or do I just calculate based on my budget that my expenses come up to about?
Let's try to save 3 months of the salary, because if you're not
Okay.
working, won't you still need all the things you were paying
I
for before?
guess.
The mortgage will still have to be paid. You
I
still need
guess.
to eat.
Okay.
Your daughter's school fee still needs to be
Oh,
paid.
Jesus, yes.
Yeah, those things don't go on hold just because you're not working. Mind you,
Okay.
some institutions are kind and they will give you a moratorium period to hold it, but we want to be prudent. We want to
Okay.
be able to afford
So
3
3 months
to
of the
6
salary.
months of no pay.
Okay.
Right. But beyond that, guys, we have to get into the investment discussion. So, sure, you can have some funds in the bank, but why not have that money work for you? Some of the instruments that you can think about where money will work for you is, how about some stocks? Jamaica has been having a lot of IPOs these days. Can I get a raise of hands? How many women in here, just to start, have an equity account or a stock account? That's actually good to see, but it's still about 50%. The truth is, there are only about 20,000 Jamaicans, and I said 20,000, that have a stock account. It's low, it's shocking, and so I encourage everyone in here to open a stock account.
What is it? What is it about the conversation about stock? Is it a cultural thing? So, for example, most of us grew. If you didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family with a parent telling you about investment,
Never
most
hear
of us
about
grew up
it.
with our parents telling us to save.
Save.
Put your money in a savings
Savings
account.
account.
So, is it that we need to start
'Cause that's what they
educating the
knew,
families
right?
from early?
Absolutely. One of the things I have in here includes educating your children. But of course, you have to be educated first to educate your children. But it's something that I asked some of my wealthy clients, right? Because I want to be like them. How did you come about this money? And truth is, some of their parents invested in stocks for them, and so they continue to do that for their children. Guys, it's a brilliant thing to do. Buy a few shares, and if you do have children, just consistently keep buying shares for them, or use the money that's in the piggy bank to buy shares for them.
And I don't mean to cut you, and I'll actually attest to that simply because it's the black tax, I call it. You know, your family didn't make very good financial decisions, then you now become your own person working and you're earning and you're trying to create a life for yourself. But you know what? You now have to take care of a second household because they didn't do the financial, the things that they were supposed to do, like pension and retirement and health insurance. They never did that. And so for my family, they did well in terms of raising me. And nobody taught me about investment, but I said to myself, I am not going to do the same to my daughter. I'm also an only child. And so for my daughter, I opened up a portfolio for her.
Nice.
She already has her stocks. And whenever I buy stocks, I also buy stocks for her so that when she gets older, I'm not giving her something that is intangible. I want her to understand where this money is coming from, why it is important, and certainly whenever I have the opportunity, I tell people that I've done it, and it feels good knowing that
does.
I'm trying to make better financial decisions for her so that I don't become a burden or bad decisions don't become a burden for her.
her.
So I absolutely agree.
That is
Thank you with
wonderful.
what you just said. Thank you.
And the reason we talk about stocks a lot, guys, is because stocks pays something called dividends. And so whether it be once or twice, or some companies 4 times a year, you're actually receiving a check in the mail, and it's such a great feeling. The other day,
Yes, it is.
Naomi, and I use Naomi a lot, guys, because I really try to, Naomi and I work a lot together on her financial plan. She said it before, she's not great with numbers, and she doesn't like it. So I tried to get her to like it. So she called me the other day, I got a check. And she was so excited about it. She's like, Naj, I just love this journey. And I really think that many of us would feel, it didn't even matter what was on the check to her, by the way. She was just excited that she got a check. So it's perfect to start with the equity. And I say equity, stocks, and shares are all the same thing. It's really good to start with the stock market because you're actually owning a little bit of that company. There are a number of IPOs that are happening in this space. We expect a lot more this year. There's the junior market, there's the main market. It doesn't matter which market you join, just be involved, get involved, know what's happening. We talk about stocks, but there's also bonds. And bonds come in many different forms. There's local currency, there's US currency, and so that leads us to diversification. Your portfolio will look different from my portfolio. Yours will certainly look different as well because you have a child. And it may look different if we're married. So it's important, again, to have that partner so we can talk through what our financial plan will look like.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Because you mentioned married. So you have stocks from what, and by the way, this takes research again. Like you have to educate yourself as well. So I understand that you can have a individual stock portfolio, or you can actually have a joint stock portfolio with like if you're married. Which one is better?
I'm going to say both.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
I'm going to say both. And the truth is, guys, we have a lot more. We are now seeing a lot of female clients. So as everybody understands, I work with NCB Capital Markets. And over the years, it has been a predominantly male market. So when I talk about these clients that I ask how they're wealthy, it has been predominantly men. But in the last 2 years, we have seen a lot of affluent professional women. They're here, they want to learn, they want to know. Many of them, they're strong businesswomen, but they just don't know much about this side of it. Their husbands, some husbands know, not all. Some of them go on like they know. But so some husbands do know, but they don't share the knowledge. I've had scenarios where the husbands die, they pass away, and the wives come and they're like, my husband always talks about you, but I have no idea what we have. I don't know what the portfolio. Do we even have money? And many of them have a lot of money, but they didn't even know that they had a lot of money. So I encourage the open conversation. Don't keep any one partner in the dark, neither about the good or the bad, because the debts are sometimes in the dark as well. And we have to have these conversations. Husband and wives have the conversations.
Okay. So we're talking about paying ourselves. So you're saying that investment is always a good option. Your money is working for you, and you're actually, you're paying yourself. Are there any other considerations that outside of stock that we need to consider?
Sure. If I may interject a little bit here about insurance, and I have to. Some of you in here may or may not know my journey. I am a breast cancer survivor, and I can't say I planned to talk about it today, but just wanted to share in terms of the insurance aspect of it. Health is expensive. While I was healthy, it wasn't so expensive, but when I got sick, it became very expensive. Chemotherapy sessions ran $1 million each. Radiation ran... Each. So it depends on the type of treatment that you have. So just to go in a little bit, I had 8 sessions, 4 were $250 each, and the last 4 were $500,000 each, let me say that. And then radiation itself was another $1 million. Now, I got diagnosed when I was 31. I didn't have $2 million sitting down somewhere. I really didn't. And certainly if I did, it wasn't for that, right? But critical illness, guys, I must say, it's a living insurance, right? So it's something that you must have for yourself. Sure, there's a death insurance, but when I'm dead, who gets that? Mommy. But the truth is, while I'm alive, and if I get sick, I need to be taken care of. Contribute to a critical illness plan. And health insurance. So the medication and everything costs as well. So invest in yourself, guys. And where the death insurance comes in, life insurance rather, protect your children as well. Because you are a breadwinner. What happens if and when you pass? So that's something I really, really had to interject. Sure, I work at NCB Capital Markets, but I like to look at the full picture and not just the investment side of things.
So in terms of our checklist, guys, you need to be having your savings for your emergency fund. That is in case anything happens, and usually that is 3 to 6 months of your salary.
Hard to do, so it's good to just start with 3.
Okay. Have an investment option. Do your research or go in and speak to an advisor who can give you an idea of what to invest in and how to navigate this entire thing. Some of us are risk takers, some of us are moderate, some of us are conservative. And the part of the insurance is something that cannot be left out.
Not at all.
So we also need to be thinking about pension and retirement. Anything else?
Sure. So let me dabble a little bit in terms of pension. It really, is a great idea to start the day you start working. Yeah. When you are an entrepreneur, though, we do understand that it's a little bit different. You don't have the 5 or 10 or 15% coming out automatically, as the rest of some of us will have that luxury. But you must set that up for yourself. Yes, you do have, so all the financial institutions have their insurance, their pension arm that can take care of that for you, but it's not enough. It is not enough to have NIS, and it's not enough to just, for me to sit and wait on NCB to take care of me. Not with the lifestyle I want to live anyway. Why not have a portion of your funds being saved in US dollars? Why not? And that part of it being the pension plan. It really is something you have to sit down, think about. There's some benefits to the pension as well. It's pre-tax. It's before the government takes their tax from your money. So you have to know these things to make better decisions.
And how do we work out the pension plan? So, for example, I've always heard people say, boy, you save your money every single month, and then by the time 20 years, 30 years pass, you realize that when the money look like a lot of money, you realize it's $5,000 you save. Right. Can't buy anything. How do we, as we continue to pass year to year, doing different things, just doing life and journeying, how do we constantly budget and predict and save towards our pension for the year 20? I'm only 16, therefore I'll have about 20, 60 thereabout. Like, how do I figure out monthly what I should be?
So when it comes to the pension, it's twofold. If you are working with, for example, an institution or anybody that contributes to a pension fund, you're capped actually. So you can only do a maximum of 15% of your salary. Many people can't even do 15% because it is high to have 15% of your salary. But when you're younger, you can do the 15%. But thereafter, it's on you. You need to figure out what your retirement looks like. How much money do you want to have every month? Because that's what it is, It's really, you're trying to compensate for not having a salary for the rest of your life. So it's hard to earn your salary when you're no longer working. The point of the pension plan or the retirement is to subsidize for that. So you can decide you want 80% of your current salary after you're 65 for the rest of your life. Of course, we don't know what the rest of the life is, so we make some assumptions. So let's use, for argument's sake, that same 100,000. I make 100,000 now. When I'm retired, the thought is you would have paid off your pension. Yeah, pensions last for 30 to, I think 40 is the maximum, because it's meant to happen throughout your work life.
Right.
When that's finished, a huge chunk of your money gets freed up, trust me. And so the thought is, upon retirement, you will no longer have that pension need. Sorry, you'll no longer have that mortgage need.
Right.
So with that, we usually estimate, let's say you need 60 to 80% of your current salary. Right? Because you still will have bills. JPS won't go away when you retire, and so on and so forth. So it really is important to plan that. We do see some clients who have no funds at the end of retirement, and it's scary. It's heartbreaking sometimes. Children have to step in sometimes to take care of their parents, and that's not such a wonderful feeling either. So plan for the retirement, guys. I'm going to say try to have both a Jamaican and a US component, because devaluation is still
It's a real thing.
It's real.
Gosh, anything else to consider? Because I'm going to open it up to the floor for anyone who might have questions about, financial freedom. Is there anything else that... And for those of you who may not know, in the workbook, it will be pages 13 to 15. So whenever you have the time, you can use that as a guide to go through and answer those questions based on what you want to do.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
The only thing I would add is when we're talking about the budgets, it's twofold, right? We talk about the hustle because it's important. You can think of a side hustle to improve the income, because we're often very focused on only reducing expenses. Yeah, but you can reduce your expenses too. You still will have bills to pay. But why not look at the opportunities on the other side? Can you earn more money? Is there a talent that you have that you're not fully utilizing? So, and that's something I've been hearing today a lot, and it's something I plan to do as well. Let's try to maximize more of ourselves and incomize that.